Borthakur IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 26th August 2021. Hope you are all doing well and staying safe. Let us begin with the first article today. Industry 4.0, it's time for Industry 4.0. Before getting into that, let us understand the four industrial revolutions. The current one which we are in is the fourth one. So the first industrial revolution was the mechanization of the workforce or the factories, where water power and steam power was used, water power and steam power was used to mechanize the factory. The second industrial revolution saw mass production of items and also the creation of the assembly line concept. Along with it, gone were the days of using water power or steam power, and introduction of electricity made possible mass production and assembly line technologies. The third is the computer generation or the computer revolution, where we saw automation of the said assembly lines and the mass production lines. And with the IT being brought into the equation, a lot of manufacturing processes and procedures were revolutionized. That was the third industrial revolution that was driving the economies of various countries forward. So in the last few years, building on what was achieved in the third industrial revolution, the modern industrial revolution, that is the fourth industrial revolution, is taking shape. So to begin with, the term Industry 4.0, the terminology which generally is identified with the fourth industrial revolution, was first coined by the German government in way back 2011, right? Almost 10 years back. So to give it a definition, Industrial Revolution 4 or Industry 4.0 is the ongoing automation of traditional manufacturing and industrial practices. The transformation is taking place, but the adoption rate is low, particularly in India. In other countries, we are seeing rapid adaptation of Industry 4.0 technologies and standards. For whatever reason, India is lagging behind, and that is what we'll discuss in this article. So what are the technologies that are involved in Industry 4.0? The first one, you have 3D printing, that is additive manufacturing. And second is Internet of Things. You'll have cyber physical systems. You'll use augmented and artificial intelligence, or augmented reality and virtual reality. And the entire process upon which the fourth industrial revolution rests upon is big data. You use the data that you collect from your manufacturing processes, then you process it, then you mine it, and based on the analytics that you derive or you arrive upon by mining your data, based upon the results of that data, you refine your processes or you come up with new procedures, new manufacturing systems. These are some of the technologies that are the core components of Industry 4.0. Right? With the help of these technologies, any manufacturing sector that intends to adopt 4.0 standards will be able to make precision and data-driven decisions. They'll be able to take precise decisions that are based on data sets. Right? They have collected the data. They'll process that data. Based on that, they'll arrive at a precise conclusion that might well work out for their manufacturing systems. Now the idea is that in Industry 4.0 we are going to see an increased level of automation, much more than what we are seeing right now, less of human interaction, even less human intervention, because in Industry 4.0 every system is interconnected. Through improved communication channels and systems, there is a greater deal of self-monitoring among all the systems, right? You have multiple systems in a manufacturing process. Each system is connected with the other and they communicate with each other. if anything wrong happens at one end of the system or one end of the process or one end of the step, it gets rectified, because to rectify those mistakes it uses artificial intelligence, it uses Internet of Things. And because of this improved communication and self-monitoring system, right, leads to production of smart machines which can analyze and diagnose issues that they may encounter. So the scope for human intervention to solve any issue or a problem in the manufacturing chain is diminished. If implemented correctly, Industry 4.0 makes human intervention almost non-necessary, and it might relegate the human to an observer role, right? If multiple things goes wrong, then there might be a scope or need for human intervention. But until that point, since the system is self-correcting in nature, the need for human intervention goes down drastically. So the idea and intent behind developing an Industry 4.0 standard is to make a factory as smart as possible, right? You use cyber physical systems, you integrate each and every system in your manufacturing industry or your factory with Internet of Things, so that they communicate with each other, right? The communication component is there, and the system is built in such a way that there are multiple redundancies in the whole system, so that if any problem comes out during any point of time in the manufacturing process, the system can course correct and correct its own mistake, needing less human intervention. At the end of the day, the goal is to make your factory as smart as possible, as independent as possible, so that you feed the raw materials, you made sure the system is robust and redundant enough that by the end of the supply line or the assembly line, you will get the finished product to the perfection. That is the idea. Industry 4.0 can be deployed at large scale factories and also at micro, small and medium enterprises. The advantage and the striking feature of Industry 4.0 is scalability and adaptability. It doesn't matter how big your factory is, how big your small your manufacturing process is. It can be tailored to meet your own requirements, so that it can be adopted at any level of manufacturing sector. It can be done at the micro scale, the small scale, medium scale and the heavy industry side also. Now in India it is called Make in India or Digital India campaign. The adoption of Industry 4.0 standards. The idea is to make the manufacturing sector in India smarter. The smart factory component comes into the picture. In China it is called Made in 2025. They have adopted this policy where they want to revolutionize or modernize their manufacturing sector. Compared to India, China's manufacturing progress is much higher. So that allows for them to adopt new technologies at much higher rates, because they have that infrastructure already in place. All they have to do is adopt necessary technologies to upgrade their manufacturing sector to the Industry 4.0 standard level, and we are already seeing these things happening in China too. In America it is called smart manufacturing, right? But compared to China, US is still lagging behind. But where they are successfully achieving Industry 4.0 standards is aviation and aerospace. You are seeing aviation sector adopting Industry 4.0 standards in their manufacturing mechanisms, and also in aviation sector. That is where we are seeing much progress from US point of view. Now let us come back to India. Particularly let us discuss about micro, small and medium enterprises. At various points of time during these classes, we discussed how important MSME sector is to Indian economy. Forget about your large scale industries. What drives Indian economy in the future, or what will ensure India reaches that 5 trillion or 10 trillion economy in the future is how willing are we to help and how the government nurtures the MSME sector. MSME sector is going to be the backbone of Indian economy, and it is going to be the driving force behind India's economic growth. Now MSMEs form more than 95% of industries in India, right? They produce more than 45% of whatever the total manufacturing output that we do as a country, and they are also one of the biggest employers outside farming in India. They employ more than 40% of workforce, and mind you, the workforce is mostly skilled, but there is a small portion of semi-skilled component also, but majority of the workforce that works in MSME is skilled labor, right? Now this is where the roadblocks begin. The first thing is MSMEs are facing an uphill task in adopting new technologies. I'm not even talking about Industry 4.0. Any new technology, particularly they face huge and uphill task when they have to adopt technologies that are related to Industry 4.0. Now what are the reasons for this? The primary reason seems to be that they lack awareness. Right, they lack awareness about Industry 4.0. They lack awareness about the standards that it talks about, and also the benefits of adopting Industry 4.0. Right, and the primary reason as to why they lack awareness, or they lack to understand, or they have trouble in understanding the benefits of Industry 4.0, seems to stem out from a certain percentage of fear about adopting such technologies, right? They are comfortable in the ways that they are set in right now. So Industry 4.0 is not only a new technology, it is an out and out disruptive technology. It talks about changing every aspect of your manufacturing process, right? You insert the component of technology, then what happens is you have to also be willing to change or adapt some subsystems that enable your manufacturing sector to be Industry 4.0 ready. So there needs to be a curve that needs to or a learning curve that needs to take place so that your industry or your manufacturing process takes that Industry 4.0 leap. So since it is a disruptive technology, they are so set in their current systems, and they are comfortable with the existing system that they are overlooking the benefits of Industry 4.0, right? Industry 4.0, the ethos of Industry 4.0 is that it is to improve the existing system. It doesn't talk about replacing the existing system. It merely talks about upgrading the existing system. But the problem is it is disruptive. From the outside it looks entirely impossible to adapt and learn, but it's exactly opposite of that. As I said, there is a small learning curve, but once you cross that curve, it actually takes away a lot of stress, bottlenecks from your manufacturing processes, right? It doesn't only talk about the manufacturing aspect of it, it also talks about supply chain and logistics aspect of it also, because the entire thing will be automated, so everything is interconnected. So not only your manufacturing process is simplified and made future proof, it will also ensure the bottlenecks that you have right now in your processes, either it may be the logistics side of it or the manufacturing side of it, it will help you address those issues. The second thing, or the second roadblock that MSMEs in India face in their in adapting Industry 4.0 is the financial aspect of it, right? It requires major financial investments. So you have a system right now, you have a machine right now, you have two options. Either you buy a modern machine that is already Industry 4.0 ready, replacing the existing system, which is a costly affair, The second option that you have right now is to buy additional information machines that can make your existing machine smarter. So it's like you have a computer with you. So based on your requirements, you will add on the RAM, the CPU, the GPU, and the power supply. And if you are into gaming and if you are into editing, you get an graphics card, that is GPU. Depending on your need, you go for a 2 GB, 4 GB, 6 GB, in some cases 12 GB GPU. So similarly, you have that core system with you, but if in future if you want to add on something, there is a possibility for expansion. That is how Industry 4.0 needs to be looked at. On the first, if you want to make yourself or your industry ready for 4.0, you have two options with you. One, upgrade the existing systems with Industry 4.0 ready systems, or bring or buy add-ons that make existing machinery 4.0 ready. When you look at both the options that an industry has, both are costly affairs. Buying in the add-ons to make your existing systems 4.0 ready is a costly affair, and also bringing in 4.0 ready machinery is also a costly affair. So financial investment that goes into making your sector Industry 4.0 ready is a huge toll to ask from an already struggling MSME. So the third option is, as I said earlier, the learning curve seems to be a hindrance. So when you adopt a new technology, what are the problems? Right, the existing organization requires training, the culture needs to change, and not only that, you need the support of your people, right? In order to successfully pass that learning curve, you not only need individual level engagement, it should be a group effort, it should be an organizational effort, it should be a cultural shift at the end of the day, because it is disrupting the traditional cultural setup that we have right now in MSME sector. The fourth and the final and one of the big ones is the regulatory framework. The support system that MSMEs have in India are inadequate, right? There needs to be a huge component or support component from the government. If you want your support, if you want your MSME sector to grow and adopt 4.0 technologies, you need regulatory framework that supports that kind of transformations, and also you need some sort of schemes or loan system or whatever it is, financial assistance system that can assist MSMEs in adopting these technologies. It seems that we miss both of these two things right now. So making even the concept or the idea of discussing adopting Industry 4.0 technologies in MSME a moot point. So these are the four major hurdles that MSMEs face in adopting Industry 4.0 technologies or standards in our country. So what are the advantages when you adopt or successfully adopt these technologies or these systems? One, they make our sector more competitive, right? They make companies more competitive. They become efficient, and the quality of product that comes out of these kinds of manufacturing plants, factories, is going to be world class, right? Your
Borthakur
product
IAS
quality is
Academy.
going to be so high that it
প্রস্তুতি আর
shouldn't face
অধ্যয়নের
any problem or
নির্ভরযোগ্য
any
ঠিকানা
regulatory roadblock in any other. That would be a huge boost to our MSME. Where our MSME struggles, or one area where our MSME struggles, is the access to market, right? Our MSMEs don't have that kind of access that Chinese MSMEs have in comparison. Now at this point of time, it is imperative and it is important that MSMEs adopt Industry 4.0 technologies without any hesitation. So where that comes from, or what should be done, is it needs a push from the government. Not only that, it needs a huge push from industry leaders. It should be a comprehensive and a combined effort from both the industry side and also from the government sides. So when you have government pushing on one side with a good and a positive regulatory framework that is very accommodating, mind you, it should be accommodating. On the second side, you have the industry itself, or the major players in the industry, in the sector itself, adopting those technologies and showing the way. Then the rate of adoption increases rapidly, and that is one way we can fill the gap for lagging behind for the last few years. One of the biggest lessons that MSME sector kind of taught itself during COVID-19 was the way which they were able to rally behind to meet the demands of COVID-19, right? What are the biggest hurdles when the pandemic hit us in the last years? First, the masks we needed to fight or to protect our frontline healthcare staff, we were dependent on other countries. Within few months, MSME took it as a challenge, and now we are self-reliant in N95 and other medical grade masks. The second thing was the PPE kits. Now we are exporting PPE kits. So when COVID-19 threw challenges, right, MSME was able to pick up that challenge and was able to fulfill the needs of our country. It was able to augment struggling healthcare infrastructure with whatever it could do. So I'm kind of giving it a positive spin, but nonetheless there are, mind you, there are structural issues, there are structural challenges, but nonetheless they were able to at least pull up to the task, and they were able to support the healthcare infrastructure in our country. So it is high time for India to adopt, particularly the MSME sector, to adopt Industry 4.0 standards and technologies so that India can achieve its goal of becoming a 5 trillion economy and also being Atmanirbhar and also being a valued member of global supply chain. And moving on to the next article, campaign for 1 million soak pits in 100 days. So to address the issue of treating disposable water in a proper way and also to manage grey water in rural areas at village level, right? It is wastewater management at village level. The Ministry of Jal Shakti has begun an 100-day campaign called Sujalam, right? This is part of 𝐅𝐨𝐫 𝐀𝐬𝐬𝐚 Mahotsav celebrations, celebrating 75 years of independence. And through this, the Ministry of Jal Shakti began a 100-day campaign called Sujalam campaign, where they intend to create infrastructure to undertake wastewater management at village level. How they are going to do it? They are going to do it through creation of 1 million soak pits and also other grey water management activities, right? So this is kind of an addition to Swachh Bharat campaign. This is kind of the phase 2 aspect of it, but with a different component in mind. So what is the general idea of wastewater disposal in villages? Any kind of wastewater that emanates out of any village is generally ends up on the outskirts of. So one of the biggest issues when we talk about wastewater treatment or grey water treatment in rural villages is generally the collection point ends up at the outskirts of the village. There is no proper way to treat grey water or wastewater. There is no proper wastewater disposal systems or mechanisms in rural villages. That remains a major problem in our cleanliness drive. As a result of it, there is a scope for major disease outbreaks in those villages. Given the current healthcare infrastructure being under pressure and so on and so forth, again, this is one of the structural things that needs to be addressed. And this Sujalam campaign, this 100-day campaign from Jal Shakti Ministry, addresses that issue. So what are they going to do? They are going to build desired infrastructure to address these issues. First, they are going to achieve this through soak pit building, right? They are going to build soak pits. They are going to use these constructed soak pits for management of grey water in villages, but also enhance and support other sustainable management of mechanisms of sustainable management of water bodies. That is one way, or that is the methodology that this mission intends to adopt. So look at the campaign itself. This is Sujalam campaign from Jal Shakti Ministry. The campaign is Swachh Jal Swachh Gaon. This is again an ODF sustainability and Sujalam campaign. This is a 100-day campaign. The campaign involves three main components. One is construction of 1 million soak pits. Number two, retrofitting of old toilets that were built under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan to be connected with these soak pits, and increase access to toilets for new households. So this is going to completely address, or at least majority of issues arising out of wastewater disposal and grey water disposal mechanisms in rural villages. So what are soak pits? Soak pits are well-like structures, right? These are underground structures that are used to dispose of unwanted or grey water. So soak pits are generally used for rainwater harvesting, and these kinds of soak pits that we are talking about are used for grey water management, right? As a result of it, when grey water passes through a soak pit, it is subjected to filtration, meaning it allows for settlement of smaller particles of effluents at the bottom of the soak pit, where these particles, these unwanted particles, are digested by microorganisms, and the process it which happens is a biodegradable one, or a sustainable process. The degradation happens through a sustainable process which is environmentally friendly and cost effective, and then the filtered water which is then discharged out through a porous wall of the soak pit. The advantages of having these grey water soak pits is they discharge clear and non-harmful water into the ground, because whatever the smaller particles are that are harmful are degraded by microorganisms. They digest it. The soak pits are designed in such a way that whatever the water comes out is non-harmful, and also the design itself allows for water to seep out of the structure, right? If you look at the diagram, it becomes clearly self-explanatory, right? And at the end of the day, they not only help in proper discharge of grey water or unwanted water or wastewater, but they also help in recharge of groundwater. Again, this is a self-sustaining cycle. These are the advantages of using soak pits. To repeat again, the campaign is called Sujalam campaign. It is a 100-day campaign where they intend to build 1 million soaking pits in rural villages to address grey water and wastewater management. This is being done under the aegis of Jal Shakti Ministry, or Ministry of Jal Shakti, and it is a component of India's Swachh Bharat campaign. Now moving on to the next article, Kamala Harris reaches Hanoi after Havana syndrome delay. So before going into that, let us understand what Havana syndrome is, right? If one of the best things that America can do in this earth is come up with names and acronyms for things. So in 2016, there were reports that first emerged that coming out of Havana, capital of Cuba, that American diplomats and American employees who were working for the government, for the US government, who were stationed in Havana, Cuba, started complaining about illnesses, right? They started complaining that they were not feeling well, they were falling ill, and the reason behind their illness was unknown. These American employees who were working for the American government in Cuba were saying that they were hearing strange sounds, they were experiencing some odd physical sensations, particularly when they were in their hotel rooms and in their homes. Right, when America started investigating these complaints of illness, this mysterious illness that their employees were falling prey to, they found that most of the employees significantly showed symptoms of nausea, severe headaches, fatigues, dizziness, sleep problems, and in most of the severe cases, particularly in the severity of all the cases, was hearing loss. People were losing their ability to hear properly. And this was in 2016, and since then there has been multiple incidents where most, or at least a significant amount of American staff working in Havana exhibited some sort of illness, mystery illness. Now subsequently, this mystery illness came to be known as the Havana syndrome. So what is this Havana syndrome? So, right, I told you, right, they experienced chronic symptoms like headaches, nausea, depression, insomnia, lack of sleep. Insomnia is lack of sleep, and also that it impaired their ability to hear. Hearing loss was one of the things that they found. Now, according to Central Intelligence Agency, the premier intelligence agency, they found, or they came out with a number stating that over 200 US officials have fallen ill to the Havana syndrome. Now, this was not only limited to American citizens or American government officials. Cases started popping out of Canadian citizens also. Right. This is Canadian citizens who were staying in Havana, Cuba, also started reporting similar symptoms happening to them. Same, the nausea, the dizziness, the lack of sleep, the insomnia, their impaired balance. They were exhibiting similar symptoms, and they were complaining of the same thing. Now the interesting thing is, after some time, these symptoms seems to resolve themselves, right? But in extremity of cases, employees experienced long-term effects, right? So in a way, these kinds of episodes, or this illness prevented somebody from carrying out their job and also living their life. At that point of time in 2016, there were various reports that Cuba was doing it, Russians were doing it, the Chinese were doing it, and they were using microwave weapons. The key word that they were using at that point of time was microwave technology. They were using short length or long wavelength microwave technology to disrupt bodily functions of an individual, and they were specifically targeting Americans, particularly embassy officials and other US officials, and the collateral was the Canadian citizens, something like that. This was going on. So the microwave technology came into the picture. But at that point of time, and to this day, Cuba denies having any knowledge of such technologies or using that technology against anybody. So they have been saying that we are not doing this, and we don't know what is causing these illnesses also. We are also intrigued. So there was the end of the story at that point of time. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris is on a Southeast Asian tour. She is on a Southeast Asian leg of tour, where she is meeting countries like Singapore, Vietnam, and so on and so forth. So this tour comes on the backdrop of US withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan and the subsequent chaos that has happened or taken place in Afghanistan. Throughout this tour, Vice President Harris has been using this tour as a platform to make comments against the Chinese aggression, right? She has been consistently chiding the Chinese for their actions in the region, for their claims on the South China Sea, for their predatory tactics and their violent tactics that they are using in South China Sea against other countries, where they are challenging the sovereignty of other countries, where they are seizing other countries' fishing vessels, where China claims almost all of the very resource-rich South China Sea, right? So she was supposed to travel from Singapore to Hanoi, and for unknown reasons her trip was delayed, right? At that point of time, US officials were saying that there was some health issues, unknown health issues, and finally there were some references to the Havana syndrome, but for whatever reason they said that due to some unknown health reasons or health illnesses, the trip was being delayed. So now we have an answer. The mystery illness that somebody in Hanoi experienced was the Havana syndrome. As a result of it, her trip was delayed. So the second aspect of it is the Southeast Asian leg of her tour. She came to Singapore, where it was a 2-day trip for her, where she made certain assurances to Singaporeans that we are not going to abandon you. As I said, given the backdrop of Taliban takeover of Afghanistan and their return to power, she is kind of shoring up her country's credibility in that region, in this region. So that is Havana syndrome. The meet is significant given the backdrop it is happening at, and the countries she is also visiting are the primary victims of Chinese aggression in South China Sea, where she has accused China of using challenging sovereignty of other countries. On the other hand, China accused US of hypocrisy, where they kind of accused America of using coercion and intimidatory tactics to contain China, to make sure other countries join with them in a scheme to contain China. So this is back and forth, but the interesting thing is the Havana syndrome episode, and the genesis of it is in 2016 in Cuba. The illnesses, the subsequent use of technology called microwave technology. So that is Havana syndrome. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.
Borthakur IAS Academy. প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা। Borthakur IAS Academy.